To the webinar. Thank you all so much for joining. I'm super excited to have you all here today, and I cannot wait to dive into all of the content that we have for this presentation. So for everyone on this call today, I want to give folks just a couple more minutes to join here. So if you could all type into that question box, that'll be essentially your chat feature for the day in GoToWebinar. I want to make sure that we're all able to use the GoToWebinar question box feature. Type into that question box, say hello, let me know where you're calling in from today. One of the amazing things about these webinars is they connect folks from all different types of areas, all different corners of the world. For example, I'm in Boston, Massachusetts. I love it here, and I am especially enjoying the winter season, a little bit of an unpopular opinion I have. So pop into that question box, let me know where you're calling in from. I'll call out some of the responses here while we give folks a second to join. And wow, a ton already coming in. Sean is saying hi from Arizona. Sandra also from Arizona, hello. John from Lima, Ohio, hey there. We have Allie calling in from Philly, hello. B from Oklahoma, welcome. Rihanna from Albury, Canada, welcome. We have Mary from Milwaukee, Tom from Detroit. Wow, Zach from Grand Rapids, Thomas also from Boston, hello neighbor. Allie from Denver, Deanna from Manhattan, Kansas, interesting. Nicolette from Fort Myers, Florida. We have some folks from Orange County, California, Trista from Texas, Liz from California, Terry saying Kansas City, go Chiefs, Ben from Southern California, I was just visiting there, it was beautiful. Susan said, calling in from State College, Pennsylvania, welcome. Nicole from Florida. Wow, I wish I could call out every single one of you. This is awesome. If you notice, there were not a lot of locations that I called out more than one. So pretty amazing that we're all in these different areas, and these webinars bring us all together for this common goal of improving our marketing. So give yourselves a pat on the back for showing up here today and taking the time to work towards your goals this year. So with that, I'm going to go through a few of the housekeeping items for today's presentation. So first off, just so everyone on this call is aware, this webinar will be recording. So don't worry about taking notes or anything like that. You're able to easily find the webinar recordings on the WordStream and LocaliQ YouTube channels. So if you want to check out any of our past webinars or view a recap of this one, just type in WordStream or LocaliQ in the YouTube search bar, navigate to our channels, and you find the recordings there. Not only that, but you all will get the materials in your inbox later today. So that will include the recording and a copy of the slides. So again, it will be recorded. Do not worry about that. The reason why I had you all type in where you're from, making sure that you're able to use the question box, is I want you to feel comfortable using it throughout the webinar and to be sure that you save some questions for the Q&A session at the end. So feel free to pop your questions in there throughout. I'll be able to see them as I'm presenting. And then again, if you have any questions that you want for that Q&A session, be sure to add those in at the end and stick around for that. If you've attended any of our past webinars, you know we have some really in-depth, awesome Q&A sessions. It's a really unique opportunity for me to kind of answer some of your questions that you all have in what feels like a one-on-one setting. So I'm excited for that. So for everyone on this call today, you might already be familiar with LocaliQ, you might already be new or working with us, you might be totally new, and that's fine too. So I want to get everyone on this call on the same page as to who LocaliQ is. Now, again, regardless if you're totally new, if you are familiar and already working with us, or maybe you're working with our sister brands, WordStream and Reach Local as well. Again, we're all connected to this LocaliQ growth marketing platform that marries innovative technology and unparalleled expertise to give your business the tools it needs to thrive and prosper. So no matter where you are on your marketing journey, welcome to the webinar, and thank you for joining us. So how exactly does LocaliQ work? How do we help small businesses and businesses of all shapes and sizes, frankly, grow and prosper in the digital marketing space? Well, technology is at our core. So we're running our optimization based off technology that you can't find anywhere else, or proprietary AI and technology informed by data from over 1 million LocaliQ campaigns that we've ran in the past. So we really have a technology-based approach to give you the confidence to make data-backed decisions in your marketing. We also give you tools at your fingertips to put time back in your day so you can focus on running the day-to-days of your business and your roles rather than spending a ton of time on menial marketing tasks. And then finally, we've been in the digital marketing game for over 15 years, which is pretty crazy to think about, because if you think of the age of digital marketing, it's really not much older than that. So we've been through it all. We've seen all the platform updates and changes, see the ebbs and flows of the landscape, and we're here to tell that story. One thing that we're really proud of here at Local IQ is that we are a premier partner with all the advertising platforms. So we want you all to be aware of that. It's not granted to just any digital marketing platform out there. It's really only granted to businesses that are maximizing campaign success for customers, displaying clear platform skills, expertise, and thought leadership within the space. And we're also meeting a rigorous set of requirements to maintain those partnerships. So very excited about that. A little bit about me, your host and facilitator for the webinar today. My name is Susie. It's wonderful to meet you all. I'm a senior content marketing specialist over at Local IQ, where I write educational content on everything under the digital marketing sun, from SEO to search ads to display ads to over-the-top OTT advertising to local listings, reputation management, anything and everything. I've covered it on the Local IQ and WordStream blogs and websites, so definitely check out our content and my content on there as well. How I got into this role was I formerly was a digital marketing consultant over at WordStream, where I was coaching businesses, like a lot of the ones that you all work for are own on this call, through the day-to-day best practices of digital marketing. So any type of things that you need to be going through on your Facebook ads, Google ads accounts, things like that. I help folks through that day to day. So I took that real life experience in that advertising consulting role and applied it to the educational content that I write today. I already mentioned this, but a little fun fact about me is I'm based in Boston, Massachusetts, and my unpopular opinion is that I love the winter season. We haven't gotten a ton of snow, which is kind of a bummer because I love to go snowboarding, but I'm still making most of the season, so enjoying it while I can. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter. I share out some of the content that we're creating, any sort of platform updates that people should be aware of. Also, I do mention any upcoming webinars as well and things like that. So yeah. And a common question that we get asked a lot on these webinars is, where can you learn more about Local IQ? Where can you learn more about the topics that we cover here in these webinars? You know, this hour is going to fly by. So if you ever feel like you need to spend a little bit more time with some of the topics that we cover, feel free to check out our blogs. The Local IQ and WordStream websites are chock full of information on all of the content and topics that we cover here. Also, be sure to follow us on social media. You can find Local IQ on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and WordStream on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. And we do share any sort of like upcoming platform updates or changes advertisers should be aware of. If you want to join more webinars like this in the future, we share out that type of information for you to sign up and more. So for everyone on this call today, I just want to get us on the same page as to what we're going to talk through in this presentation. So we're going to first talk through the main bread and butter of why we're all here, which is to set and hit our Google Ads goals for this year. So we're going to talk about how you might want to approach that, some of the things that you should be taking into consideration. And then we're going to discuss how you can start taking action on those goals, how you can pivot and track your progress as you go. And then we'll leave you all with some thought starters and jump into that Q&A session. And again, seeing some questions come in about the recording. So just a reminder that this will be recorded and you can find all our webinar recordings on our YouTube channels. All right, so if anyone is familiar with the Local IQ WordStream Reach Local webinars, you would know that I love to keep our viewers on their toes. So I want to warm you all up with a little pop quiz. So type into that question box and let me know what marketing goals you're looking to hit this year. What are you or your team looking to achieve with your digital marketing in this year? I would love to just do a little pulse check, see how we're feeling, and kind of ease us into this topic today. So I'll call out some of the responses here, and already a ton of responses coming in. Hal just mentioned that she loves that people are still calling X Twitter, which I'll definitely be talking about a little bit with some of those platform name changes. I talk about that a lot because I know I mentioned that in my social media slide. Okay, so let's see. Tina says she's looking to increase sales and leads. Of course, Carmen looking to increase lead generation. Chris looking to increase MQL or marketing qualified leads. Molly is looking to increase the lead generation. Ariel, lead traction from search campaigns. Tons of responses coming in, all different goals here. Eugene has a little bit more specific goals, hitting 8 million views on LinkedIn, definitely, or they did in 2023, so looking to increase that. Courtney looking to increase leads. Haley looking to target her customers a little bit better, definitely a challenge. Kelly looking to increase clicks through Google Ads. I love the specific goals that are coming in. I'll definitely talk about that a little bit today. Kinga looking to increase traffic to their website. Sandy looking to increase qualified leads. Cindy, lead generation as well. Brittany, increased brand awareness and click-through rate. I understand that for sure. Nancy, better ROI and reporting and lead generation. Jordana, increasing lead generation, definitely. David, looking to increase viable leads. Wow, tons of different responses. Chris, looking to increase SERP rankings, definitely. So if you notice in all those responses I called out, and if I missed any, I wish I could call out every single one of you, so thank you for participating. But if you noticed, all of the ones that I just called out here were pretty different. You know, there were some similarities, but at the end of the day, everyone is going to have a unique and different answer to this question. And I want you to all keep that in mind as I go through this content today. So as I'm going through some of these general best practices and tips, you know, every business is unique and different, and so you know your business best. So I want you to be thinking about these more generalized concepts that I talk through and how they apply to your unique and specific needs. So no matter where you are in your marketing journey, whether you're totally new or you're super advanced and just looking to brush up on a few things, I'm going to try to make this friendly for all levels, you know, because we all have different goals and are starting in different positions, and that's okay. So everyone's going to be different, and I just want us to keep that in mind. So let's talk about how to set and hit your goals in Google Ads. So let's talk about the fundamental goal of a search ads campaign, typically what you're looking to achieve on Google Ads. It's to get in front of users who are searching for what you have to offer, basically. Now, I know that's, you know, maybe an oversimplification for sure, but I wanted to get the point across that at the end of the day, you need to make sure that your ads are showing up to the right people, because that's going to be half the battle to get those conversions, to get those qualified leads, to increase that brand awareness even. So you want to make sure that you're showing, you know, something I'll always say to advertisers that are, you know, on the fence of the efficacy of their ads or looking to scale back or not sure what to do, maybe in like a slow season, something like that. If you're a seasonal business, is something is always better than nothing. It's better to have your business be present and be there when your customers are looking for you than to have them not see you or have your ad not rank and so on. So we'll kind of keep that in mind as we go through some of these goal setting and hitting tips, but I just thought that would be a nice little intro here. So the first thing that we need to be thinking about when we're looking to set goals or hit goals in Google Ads is it's going to come down to keyword research. And that's what I was alluding to on that last slide, where it really matters that you're making sure that your ad is ranking for the right searches. So thinking about your keywords and refining your keywords is going to be the basic foundation of that, making sure that you're targeting keywords that have enough volume to get your ad to show, that have low enough competition to make your ad able to be viewed at a cheaper cost, possibly if you're trying to balance a smaller budget. So thinking about that, you know, I think a lot of us think our primary goal with Google Ads is, of course, to increase conversions or increase lead quality like we just saw in that poll. But I think there's a lot of metrics that get slept on, and click-through rate is the one that I will always go to bat for, saying that it is definitely slept on. Click-through rate, of course, is indicating how frequently people are actually seeing and clicking through to your ad. So again, that's half the battle to get them to your landing page to convert and fill out that form. So again, we did put our search ad benchmarks up here, which are our exclusive report. You can find the full report on the WordStream and Local IQ blogs. So be sure to check that out if you want to spend more time. Of course, these graphs here, you know, they have a lot of information on them. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on each of these slides, so just a heads up that you might not have all of the information that you need right now as I'm flying through these, but be sure to check out the full report to take your time with it. And again, you'll get the recording and a copy of the slides after the webinar. So you'll be able to come back and refer to this. We also have a couple of past webinars where we've talked through strictly just this benchmark data. So I'm having it here as a visual reference so that you know maybe where you need to start thinking about how your click-through rate is landing in your industry and compared to your competitors. But I just wanted to mention that. Now, again, kind of a more generalized, set of benchmark data. So I'm seeing some questions come in already about, specific industries and so on. If you feel like your niche or sub-industry within these categories isn't here, try and choose the next closest for now. And again, I would recommend digging into the full report. So just a heads up on that, but that's why I put that on here, is because I wanted you to see what your average click-through rate for your industry might look like and how that can indicate to you compared to your baseline click-through rate, if you need to start looking at your keywords first as you approach your Google Ads for the year. So along with your keyword research and refining your keywords to maximize your click-through rate, you're also going to be probably looking at your keyword match types. I've been dealing with this a lot with folks. I'm seeing it on a lot of accounts, and it's definitely a tricky balancing act with which match types you should use. Matching behavior is very volatile on Google right now. There's a ton of competition. Google has updated and changed how it's treating matching behavior and how it's choosing and favoring certain keyword match types. And it has made a few updates to that within the last year or two. So definitely a lot that you could, maybe potentially want to test out or try here. But basically, this is a simple breakdown of the 3 match type choices that advertisers have. But you might need to understand like which ones will work best for your business and for your ideal results and your goals. So potentially, if you're looking to increase brand awareness, broad matches by default probably going to be your best bet. But depending on what you might need to improve, for example, click-through rate, then you might choose a more selective or a little bit more restrictive match type like phrase match or exact match to hone in on very specific search queries that have a higher likelihood of clicking through and converting. So that has a direct correlation to your conversion rates. So I kind of alluded to that when I was just saying that, depending on your match type, that's going to impact the type of traffic that your ads are showing up for and the quality of the clicks that you'll be getting, right? So you have to kind of balance like how much I want my ad to be showing and to be getting clicks, and also how much I want it to be converting high quality leads. And it is tough, which we understand, and that's why we're here, right? So this is just an example of how conversion rates changed even the last 2 years prior. Our own director here of SEO and content, Elisa Gabbert, had some pretty insightful thoughts around this, that she's continuing to see, less ads served for commercial or more informational queries. They're leading towards thinking about your keyword intent and how that's going to impact conversion matching behavior. So thinking about, what types of searches you'll be looking to show for and how high or low in the funnel they may be will really make a difference here. So also, along with your keywords, as you're refining your keyword strategy, you'll probably be looking through your search terms report and looking through your negative keywords as well. So search terms shows all the searches that your ads have shown for, so you're able to know from there really what real people typed into the search bar and then saw your ad, what they were looking for. So this can help you understand what keywords you might need to target and also what keywords you might need to add as a negative to have your ads avoid in the future. So this will help you stop showing for those types of queries and therefore help you avoid any wasted spend, making sure you're getting those high quality clicks that will increase your conversion rates, and then also keeping your campaigns organized, right? We don't need a ton of keywords. You don't need to do a keyword for every type of like misspelling or plural or variation of a keyword, right? We know with the rule of close variance that Google is reading through those small discrepancies between keywords. So you really only need your core terms in your campaigns. So the average conversion rate in Google Ads in 2023 is 7%, and that's across over 20 industries. So if you feel like that's way above or way below what you're hitting, again, that's a general guideline, and that's okay if your account doesn't match up to that. Odds are that you probably won't, and that's all right. But it can be helpful to see what the averages are across industries to give a baseline, because it can be really difficult to know if your ads are actually working well. Maybe you start running and you're starting to get some conversions in, some conversion data and conversion rate data, but you don't really have a ton of historical data to go off of. So that's where this can be helpful, and that's how some of those practices and tips that I just mentioned can impact whether, if you decide that you do want to improve your conversion rates, which of course we always want to, but of course at the same time you're going to have to again balance those other metrics, right? So something that I think a lot of people get hung up on are metrics like conversion rate and cost per lead and so on, but you need to be thinking about the whole picture and your holistic strategy and how other metrics are going to impact that. So to create a logical campaign structure, you want to be looking from the top down. Now, this can help keep you organized as you're setting your Google Ads goals and looking to hit them, and making sure that you're staying on top of what you primarily want to advertise. So here's an example structure of like a basic Google Ads account where you split out by maybe a few different campaign types, right? Because we want that healthy cross-channel marketing mix. And then of course, just breaking down those ad groups, those campaigns by ad group, and then splitting out those ad groups with keywords and ads and landing pages and so on. So basically, you kind of want it structured out in an organized way that makes sense for you, right? So it might be different it's going to be different for every business and person on this call, which is okay. But basically, what I'm trying to say is like, if you're looking to promote or advertise like a certain set of services, then you might have a campaign for each different type of service: roofing, siding, and repairs, or something like that. And those would be your 3 campaigns. And then within those, you would have your siding repairs keywords, or your siding installment keywords in different ad groups, and then have super hyper focused ads for each of those. So it's basically how you would break it up. For another business, they might have one offering or a few offerings, so they want to do one campaign for it, or multiple campaigns based on location, or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of different ways that you can break it out, but this is just a general structure of how you should be keeping your account organized to make management easier for you in the long run. So an example of this is from Brett McHale, who's actually the brother of Chris McHale, who helps bring these webinars to life here on the Local IQ team. So I guess we're keeping digital marketing in the family over here. But Brett says that his top tip for improving PPC results is to focus on how you structure your account and campaigns. And I cannot stress that enough. Like, your structure can make a whole difference in the types of results that you're seeing. And I'm not saying that it can completely transform or turn super poor results into super great results, but it's going to make an impact, right? Whether positive or negative, depending on how you structure it out, depending on your goals, depending on which metrics you want to focus on, which again will be different for everyone. So looking again at those click-through rate metrics, and again, for a lot of questions coming in about the specific benchmarks report. Again, we have the full reports on our website, which provide all of the data in detail that you may need. This is just a light overview. But again, thinking about how you're structuring out and having those keywords be targeted based on campaign and ad group can impact those metrics like click-through rate. And also, of course, conversion rate too. And again, going back to conversion rate here, thinking about the right conversion tracking is really going to be the icing on the cake after you evaluate your keywords, you evaluate your structure, making sure that your conversion tracking is tight, ready to go, tested, working really well here. Making sure that that is good to go is definitely important. So with that, I would say making sure that you're thinking about the types of actions that you are tracking too can really make a difference. So you can track really whatever you want to track. I mean, there are, of course, limitations with conversion tracking, but just know whatever you have set as your conversion actions and what you're tracking is going to impact your results. So for example, you could just track, one single form on your site. So that's your one sole action, right? And maybe there are other ways that people can be contacting your business that you're not tracking, like calling your business, clicking or watching a video or something like that. Those other actions, could be meaningful to your business, but you're just tracking that one. So that's going to, offset your conversion metrics right there, because you're probably going to get a lower conversion number reported into your Google Ads account because that's the one action that it's tracking. And therefore that, those few actions that you're getting, maybe you're getting a ton of clicks and a ton of other actions that aren't tracked, and it's going to make your cost per lead or your CPA look a little higher. On the opposite end, you could do the complete opposite approach, right? You're tracking all the button clicks on your site, and you're tracking all the calls, and you're tracking the form fills, and you're tracking the chat interactions, tons of different conversion actions. Also a great approach. There is no right or wrong answer in how you're going to track, but with that, then you have all these different conversion actions coming in, probably happening. It's going to inflate your conversion data a little bit, and it will make your Google Ads look like they're doing better, even though some of those actions might not necessarily correlate to a direct sale. And that's okay. I mean, you just want to be thinking about how you want to do it. Everyone's going to have a different preference. Some people like to do that. But just keeping that in mind as you're looking at like your cost per acquisition numbers when you're trying to set your goals for that, it can put it into perspective into the reality of how your ads are doing. So again, I know I keep going back to this like holistic view, but as we're talking about this one metric right here with conversion rate, I just mentioned like a few other actions that could be happening or a few other metrics that we'll be tracking that will impact this, right? My click-through rate, how many people are coming to my page to then convert, right? So I go back and forth between these metrics because they are all so heavily related to one another. And again, I did want to stay on this for just a second here so that you all were able to see the conversion rate averages by industry. But as I mentioned, definitely feel free to take more time with it after the call because I know it's a ton of information. Also, and lastly, you want to be sure thinking about your bidding strategy, which is going to also impact, again, your conversion tracking and how your campaigns are automatically optimizing and so on. There are a few different bidding strategies that you can choose from. There is no right or wrong answer, and it is going to depend on like other things like your campaign types, how much historical data you have. But your bidding strategy is really going to impact how your ads are going to perform, optimize, and what they're going to optimize for. They're basically kind of like a guiding light to Google to tell Google how much more or less it should bid in the live search query auctions that your ads are bidding for to serve in. So if you're using a maximize clicks bidding strategy, it's going to take your budget and do whatever it needs to do to get you the most clicks possible within your budget at the lowest cost possible. And then it'll do the same thing for conversions, maximize conversions, and then so on. So you might need to test a few. What I will say for a lot of the bidding strategies that are automated, of course, we have the manual strategy as well. But for automated bidding strategies, some folks on this call might already be familiar with something called the learning period. So as Google Ads has its algorithm learning and testing your bidding strategy, it's going to like try higher and lower bids. So it might throw off your performance for like the first couple of weeks. So if you are deciding to try a different bidding strategy or test a different bidding strategy, I would really stress giving it time and not maybe not switching your bidding strategy like every week or trying a different one if you don't see results right away. This is going to take time to really get a handle of which bidding strategies work for you, but that's why you want to kind of get ahead of it now so that you can hone in on your bidding strategies for the year. So testing that out, seeing what your options are, and just, being familiar with those can really make a difference too. We have a lot of information on the pros and cons of each bidding strategy, and again, happy to answer any questions about that in the Q&A. So the bidding strategies, of course, connect back to the cost per click metric, right? Because as I had just mentioned, it is telling Google, how much more or less value it should be putting towards certain types of queries, certain types of audience segments that will be more or less valuable to your business. So if I am, telling Google that I want to get the most clicks possible, well, a query that is more likely to click through to my ad, maybe it's super relevant, might end up costing me more because Google is going to bid for me more because it wants to get that click and wants your ad to rank high there so that you can get that click. So thinking about those, how Google is going to be bidding for you in those automated strategies, because I do think, I think most of us now are probably on automated strategies. I know I did mention there is the manual strategy, which used to be a staple, I think, and still is, you know, for a lot of different accounts out there, for a lot of new accounts, small business accounts, of course. Any, you know, certain types of accounts may favor manual CPC, and that's fine too. But that's still also going to impact your average cost per click. You know, if you're way overbidding or, you know, way undersetting your cost per click, your max CPC bid under the manual bidding, that will also impact your cost per click. So again, just sticking on this slide for a second so you all can see the different cost per click averages. And again, we do go through this more in depth on some of our other material in our online, but again, the average cost here and how these costs is $4.22, and seeing some of these highs and lows here can really put into perspective. There is a huge difference between the highs and lows in average cost per click. So, you know, again, trying to hone in on what your ideal cost per click is, what that might look like, and if it is something you need to improve, then you might want to look back at your bidding strategies. Also thinking about all your different campaign types and the marketing mix, you want to be using as many different campaign types as possible. I talk about this in some of our a couple of our last webinars. More recently, we were talking about marketing channels and how important it is to maximize the amount of marketing channels that you're using, which is, you know, to be able to make sure that you're showing, you know, in a video format on the web and then through search, which you can do this through Google, right? Because Google has YouTube campaigns, display and video, Google search, Google Discover campaigns that will show ads like throughout different Google assets, Gmail ads, and then of course on Google Maps and so on with local service ads. So thinking about how that's all going to cohesively bring up your overall Google Ads account averages is really important. So for example, if I feel like my search cost per click is really, really high, then I might start running display, because display ads or display campaigns notoriously have a much lower cost per click because they are showing so much. So those clicks might not always be, you know, of the highest quality, but that'll bring down your overall average cost per click average. And you are able to track if they do see that display ad, maybe they don't click, but then they come and search for your business later, then they're going to be a higher quality click when they do click on your search ad, and they have a higher likelihood of converting. And you also have the ability to track that. It's called a view through conversion, and we help folks all the time track view through conversions here at Local IQ. That was just one example. But again, thinking about those different campaign types, that different mix, and how that's going to impact the performance of each one is really important. So just it's helpful to picture your customer journey in that exercise, to think about, all right, are they hopping on a search and then maybe not, you know, taking the bite and then coming, you know, seeing a display ad and ready to convert, or maybe they go to my social media, even, you know, going outside of Google. There's a lot you can consider there. And this will, of course, impact your cost per lead once you're looking more holistically at your whole Google Ads account, how you're pulling in leads from all your different channels. So you want to be balancing your lead quality, as Devin Anderson, the Vice President of our Media Delivery and Automation here at Local IQ, has pointed out in that quote over on the right. And again, just a couple of images of the last couple of years data of how cost per lead has increased for some industries and gone down for others, but for the majority of industries, it did increase. And with that cost per lead increasing, we do have some information on that as well on the blogs and so on. But again, we can kind of touch on that a little bit in the Q&A too. So lastly, what I will mention is focusing on all of the right search KPIs. I think I mentioned this a little bit before, but this is a really important sentiment, is making sure that you're tracking the metrics that matter most to you. And I gave a lot of examples of that, right? Like where you might be sleeping on your click-through rate metric because you're so focused on, you know, your cost per lead, which I get, right? I think every business has gone through that experience of like, you know, you have money on the line in these campaigns. I completely understand that. And it's, of course, not always feasible to just dump more money in a campaign. Of course, if you add more money to a campaign, it'll probably perform better, right? But that's not always feasible. So be thinking about those other metrics and those ways that can indicate other ways that you can improve and optimize your account without having to, of course, just add more budget to your campaigns. So thinking of that relationship of the different metrics. So whenever I would, go through an account and audit, I would look at all of the metrics kind of in a full table view throughout the campaigns, right? So be thinking about, all right, starting with conversions, maybe start by that, see what's converting, because of course that's going to be the focus, and that's okay. I understand that it's important. That's the point of the Google ad, right? But then, all right, if I'm seeing, conversions up or down, next thing I will go to is clicks. Are people not clicking on the ad and that's why it's not converting, or are people clicking to the ad and they're not, once they get to the landing page, they're not converting? So that gives me an answer right there. Is it the landing page or the ad? If they're clicking on it, I see clicks are up, for example. All right, so are my impressions way up? Am I, showing for maybe an audience that's too broad and they're not far enough down the funnel yet? Is my cost per click really high and that's just wasting my budget, so I'm not hitting the conversion numbers or cost per lead numbers that I want? There's a lot you can go down once you go down that road, but I think that's probably the best approach. And there's a lot of other metrics outside of this, cost per click, cost per lead, click-through rate, and conversion rate that you might be thinking about too. For example, e-commerce businesses, of course, are going to be more focused on that return on ad spend. Lead-based businesses or new businesses might be more focused on impressions and impression share and impression rate. That's fine too. So just be thinking about all your metric options. Think about what's important to you is really the big takeaway there. Okay, so now that you have an idea of, how to audit your account to really understand what goals you might have for your ads this year, and then also how you might set some new goals and so on, and how you might adjust and hit your goals going forward, let's talk a little bit more on how you can take action through that audit process that I was just mentioning. So as you're setting your goals, I would first just stick to the SMART exercise here, which I've talked a lot about in some past webinars as well. Some of you on this call are probably already familiar with this. It's a basic kind of like goal setting structure that we stick to a lot in marketing and digital marketing, but I really think it's important for things like Google Ads or social media marketing and so on, but making sure that your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So what that means is, let's say, for example, you want to get more conversions, right? Of course, we all want more conversions, but that's not a super specific goal. So to refine that a little bit to the SMART structure, I might say, okay, I want to increase my conversions by X amount, within this time period. I'm going to do it by adding in these new ads and these new keywords. They're going to be promoting a offer that I'm already promoting on other areas of my site, so it's something my customers will be familiar with and want to buy into, and I'm going to check in on it, in X amount of time, and I'm going to track it along the way, or whatever it may be. Just a kind of basic structure on how you can build out that goal a little bit more. And I was very happy to see a lot of you. I know it was very quick responses, and all of you have probably very in-depth and specific goals. And some of you were just kind of throwing in quick responses, which I appreciated too. But it was really nice to see too, a lot of you did put in responses to that goal question pop quiz at the beginning, that you did have some of these SMART tactics here where you're looking to increase something very specific by a specific day, or something like that. And yeah, use that as a guideline, right? Like if you don't hit, your conversion number by, February 29th, but you on the leap year, but you hit it on March 1st, like that's not going to make or break your goals, but just again, having that guideline is a really helpful tip, I think. And then most importantly is knowing that, having a way to track and check in on your reporting that makes sense to you. I understand that the Google Ads native user interface, or the UI, isn't always the most user friendly. I mean, it's just like a gray, dark, or like if you have the new view, some of you I've seen have, it's like all white. It's just not very user-friendly, which is okay. We provide very user-friendly reporting in the Local IQ Client Center, but and marketing dashboard, but which you can see here in that screenshot. But aside from that, my point is, it's okay if you don't want to use Google Ads directly for your reporting, but finding a way of reporting that works for you is really the most important thing that matters here. Making sure that you have a way to track your progress, that you have a way to check in on it regularly, that you have a way to measure all of the metrics that matter, that makes sense to you, is super important. So, and that might mean you need to incorporate like a CRM or customer relationship management software system that will, track your leads that come in through Google Ads and things like that. You might even have your own custom reporting dashboards, or use Google Data Studio, or use Google Analytics in unison with Google Ads. I think a lot of folks, and I personally do this myself, is I use multiple sources of reports, to not, just stick to one source of truth, but to have, to be able to compare, what Google Analytics might be reporting versus what Google Ads might be reporting is really important. Just to make sure that you're covering all those bases, and again, making that holistic picture, because some, like Google Analytics, might report on different things than you might report on in Google Ads, and so on. Awesome. And then when you want to be tracking your Google Ads progress, and I did mention, like with bidding strategies, it's going to take a little bit of time, but for any change, really any change, it could be changing a keyword match type, it could be just adding in a new keyword. You ideally want to give it at minimum 14 to 30 days before you start measuring the progress. So what I mean by that is that you're probably not going to see any significant changes like overnight or right away, when you make a change in your Google Ads campaigns. And that is because, again, everything goes through that learning period through Google Ads algorithm. So it's thinking through and testing, again, your ads through those small tweaks and changes. So you need to give it time to kind of collect some data. And it might differ. You might need to give it a little bit more time if it's a more significant change, or even if it's like a smaller change, maybe you added in a keyword that doesn't have a ton of volume, but you think will be really valuable. That's an example of something that might take even more than 30 days. Sometimes it'll take less, and you'll start seeing it pretty short after. Maybe in the next few days, you start noticing, things are trickling in. That's great too. But having that patience is just really important to make sure that you're getting enough data to really make a confident data-backed decision on your ads. So I know that was a ton of information, and thank you for sticking with me through all of it as I talked to you all for an hour straight about Google Ads. But to be honest, if you couldn't tell already, I could talk about this all day. I love PPC. But with that, I know it was a lot. Don't worry, we're gonna, again, make sure you have all of the materials in your inbox later today, and you can, again, take more time with any of the content that I covered on our websites. But to kind of recap what we talked about here, I'll leave you all with some thought starters, and then we'll dive into that Q&A. So really, how you're going to set and hit your Google Ads goals this year is to go back to the basics of those like core Google Ads account audit actions that I had talked through in the beginning, right? Of like checking your metrics, checking the status of certain things like your keyword strategy, your structure strategy, your bidding strategies, and so on. The fundamentals are always a good place to default to, no matter where you are in your digital marketing journey. And now is the perfect time to do so. So just keeping that in mind, making sure that you're using data to guide you. So again, using that benchmark data that we released, which is exclusive, and we're really proud of and excited about, using that is really important to help you understand where your business stands compared to the competition in your industry. So again, it can be a really good baseline and guiding light. And what I will add to that too, and I always say this when I talk about the benchmarks, is that you also want to be benchmarking yourself, right? So if you don't have a ton of historical data in your accounts, maybe you're new to digital advertising, which is fine, that's okay. But start tracking and baselining your baseline performance as you go is really, really important. And then also one thing that I love to leave everyone on a webinar with is, I always mention this, but always have a backup plan, right? Be ready to pivot. Don't be married to one set strategy. I have seen a lot where, a business might be, really have their heart set on one type of campaign. Maybe it like really worked well in the past, but it's just not hitting what it needs to hit anymore. That's okay. The space of your industry might have changed, competition might have changed, your customer's journey or lifestyle might have changed. So that's okay. Don't be married to one set, strategy or campaign type, or even one set like budget, for example. You might need to reallocate or switch and adjust budgets depending on where you're seeing results, and that's okay too. So just be thinking ahead, as I try this change or as I set this goal and I make this optimization, what's going to be my plan B, my plan C if it doesn't work, right? If it doesn't bring the results that I want it to, what am I going to pivot? What am I going to change? And being prepared for that is really going to, help set yourself up for success in the long run. Or alternatively, if it does, great, and I'm seeing these stellar results that I've wanted all along, that's awesome too. But what are you going to do from there? Are you going to let that cruise? Are you going to, build it up a little bit? Are you going to try something new instead and see what else you can, maximize? So there's a lot of different approaches. I think, the main thing that I keep coming back to is there is no right or wrong answer. So really be thinking about your unique needs and your unique goals. So with that, again, thank you all for sticking with me through all of that. If you feel like that was a lot of information, I totally understand. I am launching a poll that's going to take over your whole screen right now. And if you have questions about like your specific industry or business, which I saw a lot of those come in. So if you did put in questions like that, I highly recommend hitting yes on that poll to get more individualized advice from an expert one-on-one at a time of your choosing after. So basically, if you have more questions, if you need to maximize your digital ads, if you aren't seeing what you want from your Google ads and want a little bit more out of your Google ads, that's why that poll is up on the screen. It's going to stay up on the screen for the remainder of the webinar. So we're switching into the audio portion for the Q&A session here. So again, if you answered that poll, just go ahead and sit back and relax and listen in as I switch into the Q&A. So if you haven't added your questions into the Q&A box here, definitely add them now. I'm going to try and answer as many as I can, but gosh, there are so many coming in, and thank you all for your participation and questions here. Let's see. So Gabrielle asked a good question that I think is on probably a lot of our minds. They asked, is it better to run Performance Max campaigns or run separate search, display, etc. campaigns? So basically, for anyone not familiar with Performance Max, it's a new type of Google Ads campaign that just recently launched last year. And it basically allows advertisers to kind of like, it's almost, I would say, in a way similar to like a smart campaign, where you're providing Google with all these different assets, right? Images, text, and whatever. And it takes that to make multiple different types of ads that show on different placements across the web at once. So it's all wrapped up into one tight campaign, wrapped with a bow. So that's the new Performance Max campaigns. Of course, those have their pros and cons and benefits and drawbacks. And we have a lot of information. If you look up Performance Max word stream, there's a ton of good Performance Max pros and cons, what to know before you start, posts on our blog about that on WordStream. But if you can kind of get that idea, then that they're showing everywhere. So what's the point of having separate search, display, etc. campaigns? What I would say is, of course, it is going to be different for everyone, but I think it really comes down to what your specific audience is like, right? And what your ideal customer is like, where they might be showing, because a Performance Max campaign might not always be necessary. Another example is that Performance Max campaigns are new. And if I've been running the same display and search campaigns for forever and they're getting the results I want, I might not necessarily want to add in this additional campaign that's going to cost me money for additional placements that I don't know if I'm going to see results on yet. So there is really no drawback. Actually, I think the majority of Performance Max advertisers at this time are still also using search and display and so on at the same time, simultaneously, alongside their Performance Max campaigns. And that is, again, because the other thing that would impact this is Performance Max campaigns are much more automated than a standard display or search campaign. So it really depends how much control you want to have. If you don't have a ton of time to manage and you want to just sit back, relax, and let your ads run on cruise control, then Performance Max might be better. But if you want more control and be able to really dig into the metrics and where people are clicking and why they're clicking and when they're clicking, then search and standard search and display might be better, right? So that's just one high level answer there. Good question. Great questions coming in here. tons more. Great question here from David. He says, how often should I change my keywords? What would be your advice on how to know when to change something in my campaign? So this is a great question. Keywords are funny because they're one of the few things within like a Google Ads or search environment where you probably can tweak them a little bit more often than like something like a bidding strategy or a little bit more of a more major change, because they are a small part of a much bigger picture that you're painting with your Google Ads. What I will say is, one, regardless if you're looking to make changes or not, you should be setting up regular optimization check-ins, right? So, and I know everyone's bandwidth is of course different. So it's okay if you check in, you know, depending on your needs, your bandwidth, once a quarter, once a month, you know, every 2 weeks, once a week, that's fine. Whatever works for you and makes you feel comfortable and confident in your advertising. But be sure you're checking in. And when you do those check-ins, look for those small tweaks and changes that you can make. For example, a keyword, you know, pausing a keyword, adding a negative keyword, changing a match type. Those are small tweaks and changes that you can be doing, you know, almost all the time to really optimize your keywords. And that's why, you know, at Local IQ, we have that automation to constantly be checking in on your keyword strategy and, you know, adding negatives as needed and pausing keywords and, you know, and so on as needed. So I would say you don't need to change it if they're bringing in the results you want, right? If it's not broken, of course, don't fix it. But if you want to be optimizing more often than not, you're probably going to be led down the path of how your keywords are doing. So I would say my advice would be to base it off your regular check-ins and your performance and your metrics and your goals. And from there, you'll know how often probably you want to be changing your keywords. Like for example, if you've been running for a really long time, you have a pretty ironed out keyword strategy, you probably aren't changing your keywords as much at this point. If you're newer to advertising, you probably have a lot more keyword trial and error to do. So you might be doing it more or less frequently depending on like the age of the campaign. And again, I would try and stick to that 14 to 30 day period rule when making those changes too. So maybe I'll change, you know, one keyword in this campaign or ad group, you know, during this check-in this week, this time around. And then I'll let that chill for a couple of weeks or a month. And then when I next go to check in next, I'll check on it again and then decide to make another change. So great question there. So Susan asked if we recommend Google demand gen campaigns. Another question kind of related to that Performance Max campaign that I just mentioned, but demand gen is another new campaign type from Google Ads. It was previously discovery ads, but those changed to the demand gen campaigns, and kind of a similar concept to Performance Max, I'd say, where it's basically just allowing your ads to show on other placements outside of like Google search and display. And it is a little bit more automated. It definitely can work for some businesses. I think it would be more dependent on, again, your industry and your audience there. So great question, Susan. Joy asked a couple of good questions here, and thank you for these questions here, Joy. How many keywords in an ad group is acceptable? This is one of my favorite questions to answer. So for the number of keywords you should have in each ad group, of course, that is going to depend, right? But it has definitely changed, I would say, over the years, right? What I would say is you definitely don't want like hundreds and hundreds of keywords within an ad group, right? That'll just make management a nightmare. It's not necessary. You honestly can get away with less keywords now, like less keywords is more basically on Google Ads these days, because Google Ads has new, you know, matching behaviors, and the search environment is different, and the rule of close variants is making, you know, those core terms match up to a lot more traffic. So I'd say stick to your core keywords. A baseline that we tell folks is, you know, maybe if you're starting off on a new search campaign manually, then maybe 10 to 20 keywords per ad group is ideal, right? That makes management pretty reasonable, but gives you a few different keyword options to try. But It might be less than that, it might be a little bit over that, but that's usually the baseline. And then Joy also asked how to avoid like keywords cannibalizing each other in the same search campaign, but in different ad groups. So again, that is probably going to come down to your keyword strategy. And I've seen this a lot in accounts over the years, but you want to make sure that if your keywords are so similar to one another, where you think that they are going to be kind of like, there's going to be one keyword that's going to take all the traffic from another keyword, then I would say whatever keyword is getting you the traffic is probably going to be your better bet to keep on. But otherwise, if you feel like they're just similar or the performance is similar, then you probably need to refine your keyword strategy a little bit more so you just have those core terms to avoid that. Good question. Tons of other industry specific questions in here. So if you haven't yet answered that poll and have more specific questions about like your own reporting instances or your own industry, which I'm seeing a lot of that in here, make sure that you answer that poll there to get your questions answered off this call. But thank you all so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I hope that you found this helpful and informational. And again, you'll get the recording and the materials in your inbox later today. You can find our past webinar recordings on our YouTube. And we actually have another webinar if you want to join our next one on February 22nd. So I'll see you all at the February 22nd webinar. Thank you all. I wish I could answer all of your questions, but of course I know we're getting right to time. So I will let you all go. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you at the next webinar.